So good morning, bonjour, صباح الخير, good afternoon, maybe. It's so exciting to see so many joining from different parts of the world. This is Rania from the GLC team. Welcome to everybody. And we're happy to be starting the webinar in just a few seconds or maybe a minute or two to give some people time to connect for those who are facing issues. Please feel free throughout the webinar to chat with me or send me messages in the chat. And if you can see the chat panel at the right-hand side of your screen, just look for it up. So look up on the upper side of the right-hand side of the screen, and you will find it there. Just click on the button that says chat. And you can write to me in English, French, or Arabic, and I'll do my best to translate it back to the presenter. So, Anna, are we ready to start?
Yes, I think we are. So it's 10 o'clock here in Washington, D.C., so it's actually time, right, for us to start. I hope that other participants are still joining us. In the meantime, I would like to greet everyone. So once again, good morning or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anna Peiko, and I would like to welcome you to the second Grow, Learn, Connect webinar. Whether you are joining us for the very first time or this is your second time with us, so let me remind you just a couple of things. First of all, this session is being recorded, and we will share the recording with you after the webinar. So it will be published on the GLC platform for you to watch or share with colleagues. We also ask you to be active participants. If you have any questions, please, as Rania said, type your questions in chat, and you can find the chat box, well, at least on my screen, it is in the bottom right corner of the screen. And I know that our presenter today, Parish, is extremely good at answering questions on the go, but if we miss something during the presentation, we'll make sure to address your questions towards the end of the webinar. We also expect a very large audience today, and unfortunately, we can't be as interactive as we'd like to be. This is why we'll keep your microphones muted all the time. I hope you don't mind that. And we also recommend that you turn off your cameras just to save on bandwidth. And maybe just a couple of words about GLC logistics. So GLC webinars will be conducted every third Thursday of the month. So next time we'll meet with you on November 19th. Caroline Moisy, she's IFC Master Trainer, will talk about post-training support. So please mark it in your calendars and make sure not to miss this exciting event. The time will likely remain the same, 10 o'clock in the morning. And I apologize if this is inconvenient to some of you, but we're trying to accommodate as many participants from different time zones as possible. I would also like to thank those of you who submitted their feedback after our first webinar. So this time we would like to ask you to do the same, answer a few questions in SurveyMonkey for us, and we'll share this link after the webinar. So this will help us tremendously to improve our webinars. And now I would like to introduce you our first speaker, Reth Kim. Reth is an IFC Senior Operations Officer with 25 years of experience in knowledge, learning, and platform management. And in her current role, she leads the development and implementation of the IFC Local Advisory Service Program. Reth, over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today in this webinar on a very, very important topic. I'm going to share some statistics with you, and these may not come to you as a surprise. As of May 2020, it is estimated that 90% of technical and vocational education and training centers are closed. 114 countries out of 126 reported complete closures of their training centers. These are stats from a recent survey that was conducted by the International Labour Organization, UNESCO, and the World Bank Group. So the future of learning has arrived, but much, much earlier than expected. Some say that it arrived 10 years earlier than expected. But as you can see on this image, the road ahead is bright. That is, if you are prepared. So today's webinar is second in its series, is part of IFC's effort to help the training sector and MSMEs in emerging markets adapt to this new normal. It has become clear, though, that the crisis provides an opportunity to develop more flexible training solutions and better use of distance learning. So I'm going to invite you, if you are not already part of our Grow, Learn, and Connect program, I invite you to go onto growlearnconnect.org, check out our platform. This platform offers learning professionals like yourself a set of tools, resources that can be applied to your training programs. It also will connect you with a global network of training professionals. And in addition, you can get certified by the Learning and Performance Institute and IFC. The Learning and Performance Institute is a leading global authority on workforce learning and performance improvement, and they have been IFC's partners since 2017. So over the past few months, for example, GLC certified trainers delivered 122 capacity building webinars on topics ranging from accessing finance during crisis to adjusting your business plan. And it was delivered to over 8,000 participants worldwide. If you are interested in getting certified, do contact us. So, and now it is my pleasure to give the floor to Michelle Parish. Michelle is the head of Virtual Academy for the LPI. She specializes in providing professional skills development and management training through live online learning. She has an impressive career. She has managed, delivered training programs to about 800,000 individuals. So now over to you, Michelle.
Ruth, thank you very much indeed. Real pleasure, and thank you very much for inviting me to be here today. So thank you, and ladies, gentlemen, I'm really looking forward to delivering the session to you today. And as Ruth said, we're in a changing world, aren't we? Everything's very, very different and almost looks like it's going to be different for some time. So we're going to be talking today from Bookcase to Cyberspace, how to rebuild your face-to-face courses, your face-to-face events for the virtual classroom. And there's quite a lot of things we need to consider and we shouldn't overlook. And sometimes these events are about the things that we don't know, the things that we haven't thought about. And I'd invite you today to almost get that pen and piece of paper to one side. And as we go through today, make a list of the things that maybe you need to focus on after today. Really is a pleasure to be here with you today. If you think about these physical classrooms, they don't translate directly to the online environment. But if we're careful, we can repurpose them. And that's what we're going to talk about, what we need to be thinking about today. I think sometimes it almost seems a little bit impossible. So if you're in that situation where you're thinking, where do I start? What do I do? How am I going to do this? Well, it's a little bit like what you see on the screen. Looks like it's possible, might be a bit of a struggle to get there, but together we can get there. Ruth gave a brilliant introduction, made me feel very old training all those people. But my name's Michelle Parish, and for the last 12 years, I've been working in this virtual environment. I do lots of events like this. I train, I do consultancy, but I also do a lot of design and development. And it's those particular skills that I want to talk with you about today. And today, honestly, isn't about me just talking at you because you're going to get very bored with that. It's about how we can share and learn from each other. So I'm really going to encourage you to take part as we go through. What we're going to do today, I'm going to just set the scene in a moment and I'm going to teach you how to use the tools if you don't know already. Then we're going to talk about some tips for converting your classroom materials. The LPI, who I work for, we run a certification program around design. And it's around 12, 14 hours of training. So in the time we've got today, we're going to pick out some of the key things that you and I need to be thinking about and need to get right. So tips for converting classroom materials. We're going to talk about the session design considerations. And then we're going to think very much about structuring your session, because it's something that's often overlooked. We focus so much on the content, but we forget about the actual structure and some of the key things we need to consider. So it doesn't sound very much, but I promise you there's a lot of content in there. And we'll end with a Q&A. But this isn't about me today. I'm going to turn my webcam off so I don't distract you waving in the top corner. So I'm going to do that for a while. I'll talk to you again through the webcam a little bit later on. But I'd like you to communicate with me. And if you haven't already done so, and I know many of you have, please open up your chat panel that I'm guessing you're going to find over here on the right-hand side of your screen. Just click that little triangle just to the left of the word chat. Open up your chat panel. And if you haven't already done so, just say hello, all right? And Alphonse, I will try to do so, okay? I promise you I will do so now. So please say hello in chat if you haven't already done so. And I'm going to ask you as we go through maybe to share your thoughts, your comments. Please try as we go through in chat, because it would really be good to hear from you and to have your thoughts, your considerations too. So I'm seeing many of you doing that, and it's brilliant. I love seeing that chat coming through. So that's absolutely wonderful. We also have some emoticons. You might have used these before, you might not. But if you now open up the participant panel, you should find this palette of emoticons at the bottom of the list of names. Just see if you can find it and click any of the emoticons you like, anyone. Doesn't matter which one. Just let me know you found them. Those of you that are on a mobile device, you're not going to have those emoticons in the same way, so just be aware. There's nothing you're doing wrong. They're just not there for you. I'm seeing some smiley faces coming through there, so that's good. And a light bulb moment from Tefri there. But I think Vanessa, I hope I've said that correctly, was fancying coffee there just a few moments ago. Emoticons are good, and they can be used in our session today. Today, we've got quite a few people, and obviously our numbers are increasing as we're talking. But one of the things that I'd like you to do today is to start to think about the tools that we've got, because I think it can be a learning experience for all of us. So today, as we go through, I'm actually going to encourage you to use a whiteboard occasionally. And if you have a look on the screen, these tools, these are our whiteboard tools. And I'd like you to have a look now at the top of your screen, underneath where it says session info, and you should find a grey arrow. Rohit, hi, good to see you. Please click on that grey arrow and click in the white space. And if you don't understand this as we're talking, don't worry. If we were training, we'd spend much longer, but it will give you a chance to try the tools out. Those of you on a mobile device haven't got these tools, so please just use the chat when we use the whiteboards. But I'm seeing some of you are trying them out. Okay, and good evening. It's good to see you here from Vietnam. Welcome. So these tools can be quite good. And if you have a look now a little bit further along, you'll see there's a letter T. And if you click on the letter T, you can type. And if you type on the screen and click away, you will see your text is going to come through. Because when we're starting to think about transitioning from a classroom environment into a virtual environment, we need to use the tools as well. So we need to understand the tools. And I've got a hello there, which I think could be from GetNet. So hello. And a yes from Chung there. Very well written. Greetings, I'm seeing. These tools can be good, and they can bring some life to your session, and that can be important. I know not all of you have used them, and if anyone wants to have a play with them, I'm sure you can do that at a later stage. So please, please don't be concerned if you haven't got to grips with them. But what I'm going to ask you to do is share either on this whiteboard by grabbing a lane or in the chat. Tell me what you'd like to get from the session today. Tell me what made you attend, what you were hoping to get from the event. Just share with me, either in the chat or on the whiteboard. I don't mind which. What was you hoping to get from the session today? Hi, Caroline. Good to see you here. So what are you hoping to gain from the session today? And either tell me on the whiteboard or tell me using that chat feature where you said hello a few moments ago. Radhika says there, introduction on how to convert classroom materials to online format. I'm definitely going to do that, so that's good. That's good. Rooney says there, to understand the use of new tools, a bit like the whiteboard there. Yep. Serge says, transform materials. Phase, make a distance class perfect. Well, there's so much to think about, but I think, you know, we're heading in the right direction. Learn the best practices of online training, better ways to communicate. And Daphne, you know, there's so many ways we can communicate, and I think it's important to look at them all. Some tips, familiarization, better design, how to make online materials appealing, keep participants engaged. And Serge, you know, I think you've said something there that's just so important, because if they're not engaged, we all know possibly what the audience is going to do. So I'm seeing on the screen there, and if you've typed something, just click away, and that will show me your text. How to use the tools, tips on converting classroom materials, best practice in session tools. I think we could be here for hours with this webinar if we cover all of this. Maybe there's need for another one. Faith says there, move to online training with confidence. And Faith, to be honest, when I first started doing this, I didn't feel very confident. That was about 12 years ago. And I felt really skeptical about the environment. And I think the more we do things, the more we learn, the more that confidence increases. Yeah, it really does. The principles for transforming face-to-face to virtual. Okay, some good points coming through there. There really are. And I've got quite a lot to cover with you. So let's move on. And I know you're having fun with those tools. Sometimes we feel quite alone. Sometimes it is quite lonely, particularly at the moment where we might be isolated from our work colleagues, and we're looking for help, we're looking for support, and we don't always know where to go. We don't always know what to do. And that's what today's about. It's that start of the journey. It's to start to give you food for thought, to give you some support. But I'd like to ask you a question. And by asking you this question, don't give me an answer yet, it allows you to see another tool, because I'm going to introduce a poll. So appearing on the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a poll. Okay? And it says having attended the event. It shouldn't say having attended the event. Just give me your confidence level at the moment, where you are at the moment. I've just realized it's the wrong poll there. So do you feel very confident at the moment in repurposing? If you do, it's a 6. Or do you feel not confident at all? If it's a 1. Or somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in the middle. Where would you rate yourself? Your name will not appear, I promise you. So you're seeing here the poll functionality. So this is the poll functionality. So have a look. Where would you rate yourself? Very confident to repurpose a classroom event, or not so confident? And I'm going to close that poll in about 20 seconds time. Where would you rate yourself at the moment? So poll is going to close. So if you haven't yet voted, please vote. I promise your name will not appear on the screen. So be as honest as you can. And also, just while we're waiting for that poll to close, think about how you could use polling functionality in the design of your events, because it could be used in an instance like this, but in other instances too. So this is how we feel as a group, how we feel at the moment. 7 of you there feeling very confident. 11 of you are rating yourself at a 5, 13 at a 4, 8 at a 3, 7 at a 2, and 1 not confident. And I don't know who you are that said not confident, but that's where I'd have been. And I would have been there about 12 years ago. So I know how that feels. And there is so much we can learn. There's so much we can do. So I am going to bring that poll in again later on, but let's close that poll down for now. And as I do so, your chat panel may have got smaller. Just click the chat panel again, just that little triangle just to the left of the word, and it will bring your chat panel back into play. So let's get into the main part of our session. There's challenges out there. We hit challenges when we start to think about how we are going to repurpose training. So I would like to ask you about those challenges. Either tell me on the screen or tell me in the chat. What are your main challenges when you start to think about repurposing what you do in a classroom into this online environment? What are the things that concern you? And you can either tell me on the screen or tell me in chat, what are the things that concern you? What concerns you about transitioning? Hung says, changing offline activities to online activities. And I think some of them will work, some of them might not. Some of them might need rethinking. Session duration, good point from Rana. How we can use the tools, and what says the activities. Okay, network issues I'm seeing on the screen, and it can be a challenge, but it shouldn't be a challenge in your design. That's perhaps more a challenge in your facilitation. Adiola says they're keeping the participants engaged. It's so easy for participants to multitask, absolutely. Assessment, Tefri says. Use of technology is a challenge, Rooney says. IT challenge for the facilitator and the attendees. Activities, converting materials, enhancing social presence, distraction. Oh gosh, lots of things. And there's a little bit of a cross between some of the things you're saying from a design perspective and also from a facilitation perspective. Some of them cross over. Some of them sort of appear in both areas. Interaction, Janeka says there, with participants is important. There's limitations, there's group work. Understanding the non-verbal messages. And I think what NK Silva says there is absolutely right, but that shouldn't inhibit the design. That is something we need to address when it comes to the facilitation, but it's a really important point. It really is. And I think, you know, you're right. The internet connection can impact, but that's about how you facilitate that session and what you do. So we'll touch on that a little bit today. Okay, it's nice to get a feel from you about the sorts of things that you are concerned about and the areas that you are experiencing issues in, because that's actually quite important, and I can just sort of draw those back in as we go through. Okay, top challenges. This is from the State of Virtual Training Research 2019. I'm not going to read it to you. It's there on the screen. We're waiting for the 2020 research to come out. Those technical challenges you mentioned come in there. Look, second point down, they're there. But so's this, the unprepared participants. Maybe that picks up on what Jennifer said. You know, maybe people are quiet in a session. Maybe they don't know what they're supposed to do. People are unengaged. Well, why are they unengaged? We need to ask ourselves why. Facilitators are unskilled. You might be a designer. You might design the most fantastic session and hand that session over to somebody else to deliver. And maybe they haven't got the skills to deliver virtually. Doesn't matter how good your design was. So we need to make sure our facilitators are skilled. And the program's got to be interactive because, you know, it comes back to what many of you have said. We have got to keep, I think Basim said this, we've got to keep participants motivated. They're there, they're online, there's all those distractions. How are we going to keep them motivated? What are we going to do? And lack of buy-in, well, that could be from a manager level, it could be from your attendee level. I think with the situation we have found ourselves in with COVID, that is not such an issue, because I think in some ways these virtual classrooms have become a bit more of the norm. It's something we've got to do. So to do this successfully, what have you and I got to think about? What have we got to address that maybe we aren't now? We've got to create a learning experience here in this virtual world which is engaging. We've got to think, how is it going to be engaging? What does it need to be? How is it going to be different? How is it going to be interactive? What are we going to do around the interaction side of things? How are we going to repurpose those activities so the activities work really, really well? It is really, really important now to consider these things. Collaboration, it might be important. Some of you mentioned group work there. So that collaboration, is it going to come from the chat? Is it going to come from using things like virtual breakout rooms? Or does the design need to be different to allow for that collaboration? But this is something we often overlook. What about the people that are joining? How do they feel? Maybe they've been so comfortable with face-to-face training before. And here they are, they're in this environment. Maybe they're not very technical. Maybe they're concerned. How are we going to help people feel comfortable? What can we do? Have you got any thoughts on what helps people feel comfortable when they join an event like this? And if you have, just share in chat any thoughts you've got. What can help people feel comfortable? Any thoughts? What can help people feel comfortable? Think about you when you join a session. What makes a difference? Encouraging participation. Good one, Rooney. Yeah. The voice can be an issue, but you've got to use your voice effectively. Teo says, people know what they can get from the session. Absolutely, Teo. We're going to mention that later. Welcoming, Adiola says. Yep, really important. Making sure they feel included, Halimeto says. Calling them by name, Adiola, and I hope I'm pronouncing some of these names correctly. Caroline says, a warm welcome. It's so important. And it is important to do just what you've said there, to speak to them, to encourage that interaction. It is so important to ask their opinion. And I think, Adiola, you're right, because so often we spend all our time telling people, but people don't want to be told. They want to be asked. Caroline says, tech issues sorted, so they won't be a distraction. Hopefully, Caroline. The other thing that you need to think about quite seriously, and I'm just going to jump back to our earlier slides. For people to feel comfortable, they need to know how to use the tools. So are we telling them? Are we showing them? Are we giving them, in the design of our program, the opportunities just to try them out? Because it's really important. There is a lot of other things, absolutely. Like Fayez says there, Fayez has got a lot of sound interruption. But what I was going to say is it's important to have good bandwidth, absolutely. And Caroline's agreeing with ensuring learners are comfortable. And Asatu, hi Asatu, says about enthusiasm, and it's so important. But maybe that's not in the design. Maybe that's more in the facilitation. What you see on the screen is a quote, and it's from someone called Dr. John Medina. And if you think about you, think about I, when we get bored, we don't pay attention because we're busy. So think about those learners. Think about what you're going to do with those learners, because if those learners are bored, what are they going to do when they're in this online environment? What are they going to do? What would you do? When you get bored in an online session, what do you do? Just tell me in chat, what do you do when you start to get bored? Take care of my business, says Fatima. Absolutely. Get busy with other things, switch off, do other work, and so will your attendees. Yep, definitely. You stop listening. Yep, you look for something else, and so will your attendees. And we don't want them to do other things, because just like you and me, they've got so many other things they can do. They really have. And they've got those distractions. They've got the other work to do. And we don't want them to do it. Not while we're trying to train them. So you need to stop and you need to think now, what are you going to do? How are you going to produce? And to a large extent, it is design, which is what we're talking about today. But also, how is that session going to be facilitated? So maybe it's so good, they're not going to want to do all those other things because they have got other things to do. And that's where we need to start. What are we going to do? So, converting classroom materials. Where do we start? What do we do? And it is difficult. It really is hard. So you might wonder what this slide conveys. I'm often asked if face-to-face classroom material can be used as it is. Just use it, put it in the online environment, and it will work. That's what people say, and I say, no, don't do that. Think of something like a television drama. And if you wanted to adapt that to go on the radio, it would need to be different. It would need to be shorter. It would need to be more dynamic. It would need to be more descriptive. The dialogue would need to catch attention. And so similarly, does the transition from your classroom to the virtual. Serious consideration needs to be given. Regular, varied, meaningful interactions. And Lovelace, I completely agree. Pictorial images is going to make a big, big difference. It really is. Really good point coming through there. So to be effective, I don't think we can just take what we do in the classroom and move it online and cross our fingers and hope. Because chances are it's not going to work. We've got to think. And I'm going to tell you how I do it. And you might do some of this, you might not. You might do things differently. But I'm going to talk you through what I would do. If you gave me a classroom course and said to me, we'd like to move this online, this is what I would do. I would gather all of the materials together, everything that you've got that relates to that course. I'd review the objectives. Why are we doing the training? Sometimes we need to ask ourselves because things have moved on and maybe there's part of that training that actually isn't relevant anymore. Are those objectives still valid? Does the flow of that session work still in the classroom? There might be a subject matter expert that you can talk to. And if there is, let's talk to that subject matter expert. That subject matter expert really knows the ins and outs of that. And it is really, really key to talk to him or her if they exist. Then look at the activities. What activities have you got? What sort of activities might you do now in a classroom situation? Can you give me, I don't know, just a couple of examples of something you might do in a classroom situation? Just fire it into chat. What might you do now? Role play. Okay, so role play. Can you think of anything else? So role play, we've got small groups. So role play and group work. Okay, brainstorming, debates. Okay, games, okay, case studies. Oh, there's some good things coming through here. All right. So let's think about some of those activities just for a moment and think about what you could do. How could you do your role play here in an online session? Hi, Rudab. Good to see you here. How would you do role play in an online session? What would you do? Think about the functionality that you could use. How would you do it? What would you use? Chat, you could. Gillian, yeah, you could use chat. You could use the open mic there. You could use the camera. Absolutely, Fatima. Did role play in a session last week, says Caroline. Camera, says Rana. You can assign people to play a role. Get that? I think you're absolutely right. And use the videos, Caroline, definitely. So role play you could do with the use of video and the use of assigning roles. You could do that. Using the camera, definitely. Think about that group work. The group work. What functionality would you use in an environment like this for group work? Breakout rooms. Gillian, you know your stuff there. Absolutely. The majority, but not all, of online software has the option for breakout rooms. But if it doesn't, look at what Caroline said. You could do paired discussion using chat. Maybe you could even take that offline. You can use Whiteboard. You have got so many tools here that you can use. Real-time boards as flip charts, definitely. Your case studies are brilliant because picking up on what Rooney said, if I was going to introduce a case study, I might send you the material to read before the event. Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing Katrina has just said that, but I would probably give you the material before. Yeah. For breakout, facilitator cannot observe every group at the same time. Absolutely. No, they can't. But it's actually hard to do it in a physical classroom too. But what you can do is make sure your presence is there and you move around those rooms and people know how to call you if they need you. Yeah. There's so many unlimited options online. I'm with you, Caroline, and I agree. I really do. But what you want to do is look at those classroom activities. Look at those activities and really ask yourself, which ones tie directly back to the objectives? Which ones are really relevant? And which ones have crept in and maybe we don't need them anymore? Fatima says, doesn't it take much more time than in a physical environment? Fatima, do you know, I think it takes less, honestly. I really do. And it's about getting to know and to understand your platform, the software that you've got, and that confidence. Your confidence just grows. And I wouldn't say that to you if I didn't believe it, honestly. I really do. But when I first started, I would have felt the same as you. But it doesn't have to. This gives you now the opportunity to really question what you do in the classroom. Because maybe we haven't for a while. Maybe we haven't questioned those training courses we've run face-to-face because we've been so busy. And maybe we can look now and we can really question. The thing that it gives us the opportunity for is to really think about how we're going to redesign the course. Maybe it could be a blended solution. Maybe it hasn't all got to go online. Not everything has to be covered in your virtual event. Come back to what Ketty said as well. Maybe there's materials that you could give before. Maybe there's materials you could give between sessions. What do you do now that actually could be a pre or a post-course activity? Look at how that session that you do is made up. Look at the chunks of learning that you have and start to break it down. Work out what you really must have in that session. What is absolutely critical? And maybe take the nice to haves out, the things that we don't have to have. Maybe they could be offline resources. Maybe they have not got to go into that online event. Yeah. Dash says there, have a Google form-based quiz for a quick overview of the topic before, midway, or after. Absolutely, that is a brilliant idea. And depending on your software, your web conferencing software, you can do that within your software too. Yeah. So it is a really, really good one. It really is. And I am just going to fire a little message in there for Mary. So hopefully that will help Mary. I just want to share a slide with you, because I think sometimes when we've got a classroom course, we sort of assume that everything's going to be the same. And if it's a 1 or a 2-day course, what we're actually going to do is it's going to be the equivalent online, and it hasn't got to be. I recently converted a 2-day instructor-led workshop, which was 12 hours of content. And I went through that process. Yep. I'm going to read that in a minute, Lavan. I'm going to come back to that. I went through the process we've just talked about. And there was a lot of information in that session where people were just sort of made to read it in the session. So I made that pre-work. But I told them it was Unit 1. And Unit 1 had to be done before they progressed to Unit 2, which was an online course. After that, there was some post-work to do. And then there was another unit to do. And then there was a final assessment. But these were 2 hours. Both of these were 2 hours. Overall, when you took this final assessment in here, this was about an hour. It completely changed because when we look at those 12 hours, there was so much put in there that actually we didn't need. People could read it, they could explore it for themselves. You can sometimes reduce the content. You haven't got to take it away, you haven't got to throw it away, but maybe it could be a resource that people could read. And keep your online events to really what you want people to be able to do. I want to go back to what Laban said. I had a situation where I provided materials before the webinar, but very few people read them and was forced to do it in the session. Psychologically, if we give pre-work and it is not a unit, I'm just going to clear these again. It's not a unit. I'm just trying to think how to explain this. In this scenario, the pre-work here is unit 1. The post-work is unit 3. Very few people will start a course at unit 2. They will understand they've got to do unit 1. And it makes a difference if you actually call that pre-work the first unit of the session from a psychological perspective. Basim says, I've squeezed 20 hours of training materials into 6 hours. Yep, I can completely think you have. I'm hoping you had some offline resource there and it was effective. Brilliant, brilliant. Well done, well done. Focus on the critical needs of the participants and eliminate, yep, absolutely, eliminate the nice to know or the nice to have. Yes, yeah. Definitely. And I would completely agree with you, Basim. It can be done. And Basim says it can be done too. Dax says there, agree, online participants like to hear rather than being asked to read or just look at the screen, provided, as you say, should be engaging. It is essential it's engaging. And I think, you know, honestly, sometimes we just need to remember how we feel. If we're just being read to or talked at, we get really bored. And if you do the same for your participants, they're going to be the same. So it's important we keep it interactive. We want to sort of keep people smiling as this guy is here. We want to keep them with you. You need to make the pre-work a prerequisite for attending the sessions. Absolutely. Ensure that Unit 1, hi Peter, comes with an outcome to Unit 2. Really good point, Peter. Thank you. What kind of content could you have at pre-work? Serge, the course I was talking about here, this particular course was to do with standards around food safety. And there was a lot of legislation, a lot of legislative work, which was covered in the classroom. But by sending them the work to read before, and then, as Peter said, in Unit 2, making sure there was an exercise that tested their understanding about what they'd read, it took out nearly an hour and a half of classroom activity. And it moved that legislation work offline. It's not going to work for every session, but it's looking to see. What I tend to do is look at a session and see where people are just being talked at or being read something, or just being told something. What else can you do? How else can you bring that to life? And sometimes this sort of scenario is what makes a difference. But as Basim said, you know, focus on this must-have, yeah, and get rid of the nice-to-have, and make that your reading material. Basim says, another tip from what I'm doing is participants' home-based tasks. Brilliant. Yeah, yeah. Questions relate to content you will deliver. Definitely. Definitely. But through all of this, there's something that you've got to do. You've got to understand your software. Even if you are not going to be the person that is going to do the delivery, you've got to understand your software. Because if you don't know what your software can do, you don't know how you're going to design the session. So it is really important that you as a designer actually knows your virtual environment and knows what you can do. Yeah, really, really key. So if that isn't on your to-do list, make sure you do. And I don't know what software you're using. Just tell me in chat, what software are you using? Do you use WebEx? Are you on Zoom? Are you using Teams? Zoom? I'm seeing Zoom come through there very quickly. Zoom, Zoom. Everybody's on Zoom there. Yeah, Zoom. Blackboard. Okay, I know Blackboard. So Teams. Okay, WebEx. I like WebEx, Margaret. Teams is harsh, says Elizabeth. It's different, isn't it, Elizabeth? It's different. Zoom and Teams. Big blue button. Of course, Rudab. Of course. Go to webinar. All right, but most of you using Zoom. Well, if you think about Zoom, and I know that's the one most of you have mentioned there, you've got the breakout functionality in there. Yeah, you really have. Blue Jeans, I know, Chung, not as well as others, but I do know that one. But make sure you know your environment and you know what you can do within it, because it is really important for you as a designer. And when you start thinking about those session design considerations, we've already said this, focus on what you want people to do. And take that reading, take the resources out of the training and let them sit those to one side that people can use when they want them. Design your training around getting people to practice the things that you want them to learn from that session. That's absolutely critical. What's important about the interaction? The interaction that you're going to plan into your design, what must you remember to do? Any thoughts? What must you remember to do as far as that interaction is concerned? Tell me in chat. What must you remember to do? So you've got to have the interaction there, and it needs to be what? Active, brilliant, polling, engaging. Yeah, I like WebEx too, Desiree. Yep, polling. Relevant, open. I love what you said, Teo, about relevance, because I think it's really, really important. Really important. It has got to be relevant. I'm looking to see participative, engaging, group discussion. See, there's brilliant suggestions coming through here. Mix it up. So think about that design. Ask those questions. Have the group discussion. Bring in the polls. Use the whiteboards. Invite people to share experiences. The chat, absolutely, Gillian, just like we are today. But Peter's right. You know, this engagement is absolutely critical. And that group discussion that Mohammed just mentioned there means that you're using a variety of tools. Margaret's mentioned the open microphone. I don't actually know how many people we have today, so I'm just going to go and check while I'm talking to you there. We have, I'm just having 85 today. So with open microphones and 85 people, that's perhaps not a good idea. But with your smaller training groups, it's essential. And essential they have control of their microphones. So as Desiree says, they can share their experience verbally as well as in the chat. Yeah, it is really, really important. Encourage food for thought, Dax said there, and letting them be inquisitive to interact. And I love what you've said, because I think that's a real understanding of how people might feel. And that the inquisitive side, some people will love it and really jump into it. Others will be slower to love it, but they will if you take care with them. But design your sessions using a variety of tools. Keep your learners active every few minutes. What's the best practice around this? I have a feeling some of you know the answer to this, but there is a best practice standard. It would be nice if we could in HDO, but I think one of the ways to reward participation is almost verbally. So what is the best practice standard for how frequently your interactions should be in an online session? Serge says 5, Rudab says 3. I had a feeling so. Oh, Margaret. Okay, you're absolutely right. The actual answer is 3 to 5. Yeah, continuously, says Peter. But it is 3 to 5. You know, 5 is fine, but you're looking every 3 to 5 minutes to have that interaction in there. Because if you're doing that, you are hopefully encouraging people to stay with you. And that's the important thing. We've got a lot of people today. We're a webinar event, and you will run, I'm sure, webinar events, but lots of your sessions might be smaller events. They might be more learning events where it is going to be absolutely essential you know people are engaged, that you know that learning transfer has happened. And when it is, you're probably talking more like numbers about that. Think about your classroom training. You probably have somewhere where about 8 to 12, those sorts of numbers. In a way, you want the same online because you can monitor those and you can draw people in if they're not interacting with you. Session duration, aim for around about there. Some people might tell you 30 minutes. No. I don't know, Bassem, how long your sessions were. By all means, tell us in the chat there. But we tend to go 2 hours. We tend to do, Peter says 90. Yeah, we tend to do, Letty says the same there, or Ketty, sorry. We tend to do the same. Maximum 2 hours, I think so. Yeah, 2 hours morning and 2 in the afternoon. I've done that too, Huda. I have 3 hours with 20 minutes breaks. Of course, Basim, you are mean there. All right, but you can. Years ago, I was asked to deliver 3 sessions of 2 hours in one day, and I didn't think it would work. It does. It does. I have a little bit longer break than Vasim said there, but I have delivered 6 hours in one day, and I promise you it can work if the interaction is there. Because, you know, it is so important we help people focus. Peter says 30-minute break. How about 3 hours with 2 breaks for 15 minutes? I think you could do that, Fatih. Yeah, I think you could do that. I really do. Yep. Or even 1/2 hour break in the middle. Absolutely fine. Yep. We've got to help people stay focused. We're going to help them if we get the duration right. We're going to help them if the interaction's there. We're going to help them in those smaller groups if we can draw them in. But also, it's going to be about what they see. How would you feel if you joined a session and the slides on screen were a little bit like the ones you see in front of you? What sort of things do you feel? But Elizabeth, you've got to make that session so good, they are going to want to come back to you. Yeah? Sad. Rudab would feel sad if he saw this. Yeah? So how would you feel? Rudab says sad. Straining to see, distracted, depressed. Well, just looking at those words, confused, boring, stressed. Do we do this? Do we do this to our learners? Do we put slides like this in front of them and expect them to understand it? We might. Never do this, as I say to you. Absolutely. But do you know, I used to in the past. You might have done, I don't know. But I think I used to because I didn't know any better. And we don't want people to be bored. We've got to think about how we're going to keep them focused. And slides like those ones we've just seen, they're being proven over and over again to prevent learning. Yep. We need our slides there to support that message we're giving. But those slides shouldn't contain everything that you and I are going to say, because otherwise, why do we need to be there? So think about this in your design. Try and aim for this. Try and aim for 1 point per slide. What's the advantage of doing that? What is the advantage in your online sessions if you have just 1 point per slide? What's the advantage? Focus? Yep. Focus, definitely. They can't look anywhere else, can they? Because that's all there is. Absolutely. You're completely correct. And it is more readable, easier to remember, drives the point forward. But you might have more slides in your deck. But it doesn't matter because look at the benefits. Think about your font size. 14 point. Well, you know, it's not a bad size, is it? Oh, I tell you, that's 20 point there. That's 28. Or maybe 36. Yeah? 20 to 24, Basim says. It can depend, Peter, it can depend. But essentially what we're saying is think about it. Because if you go for a font size like this, do you know the chances are you are going to put more text on that slide. And the more text on that slide, the more people read. The more they read, the less they listen. The larger your font, you're not going to put so much on the slide. There's not going to be so much to read. And you want to make your slides stand out. You don't need text. You need a little bit. But the more text you have, the more people read, and they're not listening to you, they're reading the slide. Yeah? Peter says, I normally will do nothing less than 20. That's not a bad rule, Peter. That's not a bad rule at all. Yeah. But make your message stand out. Think about your visuals. How are your visuals going to engage people? Find yourself some brilliant photographic resources and think about what you can do. I think it is, Margaret. I think, you know, the visual side, and if you think about the screen changing, the colors, it makes a big difference. Lovelace, I think it's perfect. 28 with a picture sounds about right to me. It really does. And these things are just so important. They really are. So lots to think about. I'm watching my time here, but lots to think about. There really is. And it is a really exciting topic. It really is. So we need to think about making this learning stick. And one way to do that is to go back to our design and really chunk our message up. Think about those chunks. Are we going to have people together for an hour, 90 minutes? And if so, what are we going to be covering in that 90 minutes? What can be our offline resources that can help embed that learning? Look at that design and ask yourself, how are you going to repeat things? Now that might sound almost a bit crazy, but we need to tell people what we're going to tell them. We need to check they understand after we've told them. So we need to build an element of repetition into the session, an element of testing. Serge says a good visual gives the feeling of professionalism and gives confidence that the content's up to date. Nice point. It really is a good point there. I quite like animation, just sort of a little bit of slide build. I quite like that. I do quite like that. Yeah. I'm smiling, Helen, at your comment there. But think about how we're going to make that information stick. That seems right. It's got to be relevant. Yeah, so hence you've got this poor lady here, look, with things stuck to her fingers. Chunk your message. Think about the repetition. Think about what people already know. How can you associate your learning with what they already know? Emotional context is almost something a little bit like a little bit of pressure that you can bring into the session. It's something we cover in much more detail in our training. But think about the visual side of things. Think about the passion. Gillian, you're right. Absolutely. Absolutely. It has to be taken into consideration in the design, but it also has to be taken into consideration in the facilitation too. You're absolutely right. But it goes back to what I said. You could design the most fantastic session, but give it to someone that doesn't like delivering online or doesn't understand the software, and it's not necessarily going to work. That passion really needs to come through. I think it was Asatu said earlier about enthusiasm, and it is critical. It really is. Okay, conscious of time, I need to talk to you. I need to cover this. So I need to talk to you about the structure of your session before we sort of start to wrap up. Because what I want to say to you is don't just focus on that main content. I know that main content is absolutely critical, but so is your opening and so is your close. And often they get overlooked. So think about your slides. Think about your material. What do you need to do? What do you need to cover at the start of an online event? Think about your materials that are coming up on the screen. You open your event, what do you need to cover? Attractive opening. I think it has a big impact phase in the focus. Something for interest, yeah. I like video, Serge. It depends on the session, but I will. And couple of minutes, that sort of time scale. Captivate attention and interest, test their temperature. Video must be relevant, absolutely. Menti games, attractive presentations. Okay, I was thinking more about the structure. So if I tell you the sort of things, wrong slide there, if I tell you the sort of things I was thinking about, that warm welcome you've covered, that testing of the temperature, the getting them engaged. But you need to show them the tools, just like we did today. So think about your design. Have you got slides covering the tools? Are you getting the learners to prove to you they can use the tools? That familiarization, Helen says, is absolutely critical. So it needs to be there. You need to be getting them active. You need to be getting them doing something, because coming back to what Gillian said about captivating their attention, their interest, get them active early on, because if you don't, they're going to start to drift. Your introduction is key. Set the ground rules. What are they? Webcams on, webcams off. Others, have they got control of their microphones? How do you want them to ask questions? Show them the tools. Tell them what you want them to do. And Annotation is right. It's all the other things then, like the what's in it for me, the objectives, the agenda. But if you look at all of these should all be covered by slides. Get those slides moving. Keep those slides moving. GetNet says that allowing participants to greet in video and introduce themselves, absolutely no reason why not. No reason why not. You know, particularly if you've got not a huge audience. And similarly with your session close, you've got to do a summary, a recap. Don't forget it just because you're online. Think about how you're going to do a knowledge check. How are you going to do it? How are you going to use the tools? How are you going to keep them active right up to the end? Opportunity for questions. Yep. Support. Further info. How to deal with late participants joining the session. It happens. It happens in every walk of life. And I think, you know, if you can acknowledge them when we've got lots of numbers like this, it's very difficult. In your smaller session surge, you should see them come in, just greet them, say hello, tell them where you are. And it is an advantage of the recording. It really is. But what I'm saying to you is, I know lots is all about designing the main content. But this opening and this close is just as critical. If you don't get that scene set right, you know, if people aren't comfortable, and coming back to what Teo said a few minutes ago in chat, it's really important to help people feel comfortable with the tool. Sometimes we worry why people don't interact. Maybe they don't know how. Maybe they feel they can't. So it's important. I am conscious of my time, and I'm conscious I'm probably taking up too much time. So let me just sort of start to pull to a close, because I've got some questions for you. And I'd like you to think about your to-do list. I don't know what you're going to take away from the workshop today. I don't know what you're thinking about. But I think, you know, in summary, I would just like to say to you, yes, this is what we've gone through. This is what we've talked about. But I would say to you, understand your environment. Serious thought has got to be given to the interactive nature of the session. Your participants are remote. Look at what constraints you've got with your platform. Keep that session interactive. It is so important. Keep your numbers low of your attendees. It means your interactions can be really meaningful, and you can monitor their attentiveness. And think about the blend. Go back to that conversation we had, and I'm just going to change my slide and go right the way back. Go back to that conversation we had earlier. It hasn't all got to go online. I bet you could repurpose. Make this your light bulb moment. How could you now completely repurpose what you've done? And you might find, like Basim has and I have, do you know, it is going to work just as well. So I am going to bring that poll back before I ask you what your takeaways are. So any change at all, and it does say now, having attended this event, any change in your confidence at all, where are you feeling now? Okay, you're very swift with this poll. Okay, you've got about 20 seconds left there. So about 20 seconds. And we haven't used all the functionality today, but there's so much functionality that you can use in these sessions, and it is now about exploring. There is nothing we've used today that isn't in Zoom. So you've got it in Zoom. I am going to share the results of the poll. So results of the poll are sharing. Gosh, your confidence has gone up for some, I'm seeing there. And I've lost the person that was on a 1 earlier on and the person on a 2. So that's got to be good. seriously, I hope it has helped a little bit. I'm going to close that poll, and remember to just open up your chat by clicking that little triangle just back to the words, just to the left of the word chat. Ideal group for an online training session. I think training surge where, you know, you've got your objectives and you really want to monitor that learning transfer. I would say try not to go above about 12. You might push up to 15, but ideally round about that. So what are you going to take away? If you can share, please do on the whiteboard or in chat. What are you going to take away? What are you going to do differently? What are you going to try out? Is there anything? So you can either write on the whiteboard or you can tell me in chat. It's good to see your hair, Rudolph. Thanks, Katie. Thank you. Designing the material, says Katie. I love the material design. I didn't, Katie, to start with. The pre-work, Katie said. Yep. Session structure, working on my opening and close. And I think, Dash, you know, it's something that so often we overlook. Go there with confidence because now I know what to do. I love it. Reduce the size, everything. Fatima says there. Opening and closing, focus more on the closing. It's easy to overlook it by seeing, particularly when we're tight on time. You know, it is really. I'm seeing Faith said used to jump into the main workshop without an opening. Do you know, Faith, so many people do. And it's only because we stop and think, is it the right way to do it? Is there benefits? Try doing it differently and see if it makes a difference to your interaction. I bet it does. Lots on redesigning. Yeah, many things. Good. That's good. All right. And some nice use of whiteboard going on there too. It really is. So it's absolutely lovely. It's actually been a real pleasure spending time with you today. And I sort of hope that maybe you don't feel quite so alone now. Maybe you've had that light bulb moment. Here at the LPI, we offer two main certification programs. We offer one all around facilitation. Yeah, all around facilitation, which really takes you by the hand. And I'm not going to read that to you, but it takes you by the hand and takes you through everything that you need to know to up your confidence around facilitating live online events. And it is very much a blended solution. There's live sessions, there's self-study, there's curated material, and a final assessment. But it might be you're only ever going to do design. So we do a design program, and that works in a very similar way. Yeah, it is really important to sort of think about how that design is going to be. So this takes you through every single step there is as far as designing an online workshop, gets you to really think about it. So that's our seed over there. And again, live sessions, curated material. But if you want to know more about that, then please do reach out. But I think for now, I'm going to say, what questions, thoughts, or comments have you got? And Fatima says there, she didn't see the time going, couldn't multitask. I'm smiling at that. Maybe you see it makes a difference. Seriously, is there any questions? Is there anything I've missed? Because there might have been, so sorry if there was. What's the best platform? Oh gosh, do you know, so many people ask that question. And I always hesitate when I respond because I think when you've used a platform for so long, like I have, you tend to get very comfortable with the platform you use. So I use Adobe Connect and I use WebEx Training quite a lot. So I would have to say they're my favorite. However, when you start looking at the others, like your Big Blue Button, your Blackboard, the Zoom, do you know there's not much in them? There really isn't. It's about getting comfortable with the platform you've got. Yeah. So I'm just picking up on the chat. What should be the ideal duration in a day? Rana, I think if you're new to this, I would say to you, I would just do one session of 2 hours in a day. The more comfortable you get, honestly, you could do 3 2-hour sessions in a day. But get comfortable first because your enthusiasm, your energy needs to be there. Yeah, it really does. How do I manage the chats effectively? Helen, I'm going to be really honest with you. When I first started doing it, I didn't. But it makes a difference. And somebody once said to me that when we just talk at people, it's like we're ignoring them. It's like we're pretending they're not there. And there's real people out there, so why aren't we acknowledging what they're saying and drawing it in? And it makes so much difference to the session. So it comes from habit, it comes from practice, and also, Helen, I've got a little beep that goes in my ear when you send a chat message in. Can you share some online activities that can be used for online sessions? Oh gosh, Gillian, there is just absolutely so much. I wouldn't know where to start at this point. It depends on your training as to what you're going to do, but there is just so much you could do. Seriously, and I haven't answered that very well. There is just so much you could do. I'm just picking up there. WebEx is very good. Someone said there. Platforms evolve. I think they do. I think they do. I knew you'd just done seed, I'll read out. Will this session available online for a rerun? Inacia, I'm pretty sure it's being recorded, and I think someone will give you access to the recording. What about the formula to 6x6 slide contents? I think here we've got to think differently when it comes to the formulas, and there's all sorts of formulas around slide design. I would say to you, if you've actually got 3 ways to engage people. The ways you're going to engage people in an online environment, and I've just put my webcam on here at the end to talk to you, you're going to engage by how you talk to somebody. Yes, the design needs to be engaging, but you're going to engage by how you talk with them. You're going to engage by what you ask them to do. And when you come to the design of the material, if those slides stay static, people are going to drift. When those slides keep changing, they actually help to engage because you've got movement, you've got flicker, you've got color. So look at the top of the screen. I don't know if you've noticed, but if you look at the very top of the screen, I've used 70 slides today. And I don't know how long we've been together, maybe 60 minutes now. I've used 70 slides. But if I was to say to you earlier on, I've got 70 slides, you would probably think, gosh, you know, I don't want to sit through 70 slides. It makes a huge difference. It really does. So I would almost throw those rules out and I would start again. Yeah, I really would. So lots of you talking about signing up for the certification programs. I don't know if Kelly or Rania will talk about that. Caroline says that whatever platform you use, ensure you learn it. Absolutely, I would agree, Caroline. Absolutely. Amazing. Really, absolutely, really, Fatu. It has been 70, I promise you. Okay. Have I missed anything? Have I missed anything at all? You've been absolutely fabulous. Your chat has been absolutely amazing today, so it's been wonderful. And just coming back to you delivering, and when you deliver sessions, do you know the more you encourage that chat, the less lonely it is. Because when you're doing this, it can feel quite isolating. It almost goes back to my man sitting on the island a few minutes ago, but it almost goes back to this. And when you've got people talking with you, people responding, you know you're not alone. Serge says, do you use several devices to connect whilst giving training? Yes, I do. If you look at the participant panel, there is an XX Michelle logged in. So that's giving me on this side your view all the time I'm delivering. And I would be lost without it, Serge. I absolutely love it. Yep. Okay. So I'm having a look there. Anything else? No, I don't think so. Okay. It's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure. And I don't know. Yep. If Kelly, you want to say anything before I hand over? Or if Rania, I'm seeing who's unmuting there.
Well, I'm just happy to answer some of the questions in the chat, specifically on the certification and the CETO and the golf courses. So definitely, whoever wants to take either of them, please feel free to contact the LPI, but ensure that you have completed your profile on the GLC platform or the GLC directory of trainers, because if you are there and if you have a complete profile on there, then you would get a special price for the session. Now, on a second point as well that came up a lot, it was about whether these sessions would be, the recording of the session will be shared. Yes, it definitely will. And following this session, you will get an email with the link to the registration. I'm not sure how long it will take, maybe 24 hours or 48 hours, just the time that WebEx sends us this recording, but it will definitely be sent to you. I hope I have answered all the questions. Kelly, would you like to add something? Or if
Hello, Rania. Yes, thank you. I've just popped a message in the chat that I'm more than happy for people to contact me directly. I've shared my email address, obviously, after they've completed the profile information. I'm happy to answer any questions about LPI programs. And that way, if they come directly to me, I can ensure that the partnership discount we have in place is applied.
Great. So you can either contact Kelly on the email that she shared in the chat, or I think also if you go on the website, the LPI website, you will easily find a page on each of these courses. And please, I just remind you, if you have any questions, either you can write them in English, in French, or in Arabic, and I'll be happy to translate that.
Great. So thank you so much, Michelle, for the very, very engaging conversation. You really taught us a lot, and you walked the talk. You really engaged us. You got us in, and the hour passed very, very quickly, as everybody mentioned. And also, I wanted to thank Anna, Rania, and Mark, who really worked behind the scenes to make this webinar happen. So I wanted to share, to close this, something that really encapsulates everything. And for you, if you like soccer, this may resonate. So this is the World Cup, 1966 in black and white, and 1970. So why am I showing you this? It's from an article from McKinsey that really inspired me. It talked about the future of work post-COVID. And they made a very nice analogy between, soccer and COVID right now. So in 1966, Brazil thought that they were on their way to their third win, but the team was eliminated on their first round. Their star player, I don't know if you remember Pele, who was very known, failed to perform, and he said he was never going to come back again. But 4 years later, they won, and Pele was named the player of the tournament. So how did they do this? They did this because of innovation, because they came up with a new attacking style. That required them to build a cohesive team, leadership, and so on. So why am I telling you this soccer and COVID situations and training? It is, well, very much like this, organizations, and as Michelle mentioned, need to start reimagining what the future is going to look like, need to repurpose what they have, need to have a new business model, and then accelerate, the adoption of digital solutions. And as Michelle mentioned, you need to have a firm understanding of your platform as well. So I would say that this is, I hope, inspirational. And to the analogy of being alone on this island, you are not alone. You can have all of the resources on our Grow, Learn, and Connect platform. If you haven't signed on yet, please do. It's growlearnconnect.org. The courses that I have here, and I'm using a font that's a little bit small, so I'm learning something today to make them bigger in the future. These are 5 courses, and they're not only 5 courses, they are learning paths. So under each of them, there are many courses. These courses are available to you free of charge. It's self-paced learning. You can go and then take those courses. In addition to those courses, once you get onto Grow, Learn, Connect, you will see the principles for learning. You will see the guide to training, which is about 166 pages. You get connected to a network of professionals. So we do encourage you to join that network, and you can become a member. You can also get certified through LPI and IFC through the platform as well. So contact us. and I hope to see you again next month in November on the webinar entitled Providing Post-Training Support. Thank you so much for your time.